Tonight, a tiny crack, the soft pop of a date pit against a wooden board, and suddenly you have 3 little jars waiting to be made from what was going to be kitchen waste. In about an hour, you can coax a toasted finishing powder, a little face oil, and a sleep sachet out of a single pit. Sound small? It is, and I think you'll find it quietly satisfying. Welcome back to Earthy Remedy. I'm Fiona Thompson, and tonight we're practicing small batch stewardship, turning 1 date pit into 3 gentle rituals you can finish this evening. The full written recipe, photos, and a printable safety checklist are in the show notes if you want to follow along on your counter. Quick note before we begin. This episode is about culinary and cosmetic finishings, not medical advice. We'll be careful about heat, drying, and patch testing for topical use. If you'd rather just listen and explore later, that's perfect. If you're ready, gather a towel, a small hammer or nutcracker, a skillet or oven, a spice grinder or mortar, a fine sieve or cheesecloth, a sterilized tiny jar of 20 to 30 milliliters, and a small muslin sachet. Segment 1. A small kitchen problem. I'll tell you a quick neighborhood vignette. Last winter, I watched a neighbor sweep up a little pile of date pits after a family gathering and drop them into the compost like confetti. I felt a twinge because those pits are dense with a quiet, woody sweet note that responds beautifully to heat. So I started collecting a few and slowly learned how to transform them into tiny, useful things that smell like home. You may relate, the little bit of waste that nags at you, the idea that something overlooked can become a small ritual. That's the feeling I want to hold here. Gentle, doable, respectful of resources. Now let's look at the kitchen science and the safety basics. Let me explain the science. A date pit has a hard shell protecting a small kernel inside. That kernel contains oils and aromatic compounds that are relatively stable but need careful handling. Drying removes moisture that could invite spoilage. Low, gentle heat, not scorch hot, helps release the aroma without burning the kernel. From a practical perspective, that means slow oven or a quick dry skillet and close attention. On safety, cracking a hard pit can send tiny shards flying. Do it on a stable surface, wrap the pit in a towel, and tap gently with a small hammer or use a nutcracker. Wear eye protection if that feels comforting. For the oil, infuse at very low heat in a water bath rather than direct high heat. Then double strain and refrigerate. For topical use, we'll walk through a mandatory 24-hour patch test later. And remember, these preparations are for finishing or topical use only. We are not providing internal dosing advice. Who this suits tonight? If you love small batch kitchen projects, low waste craft, and sensory rituals, this is for you. If you have a known severe nut or seed allergy or very reactive skin, take extra caution or opt for store-bought carrier oils and skip the pit handling. If you're pregnant or nursing and unsure about new topical blends, talk with a trusted provider before adding new products. These are gentle, but gentle is not the same as universally safe. Before we dive into the main work, a quick overview of yields and the evening's promise. From a single average date pit, you can expect roughly 2 to 3 tablespoons of toasted coarse finishing powder, about 15 to 20 milliliters of a light infused face oil once diluted, and 1 small muslin sachet for your bedside, scented and soothing. All single jar friendly, all small batch. Segment 5. Recipe Walkthrough. I'm going to read the ingredient list slowly, pause or write as needed. I'll also give substitutions, so this is accessible. Ingredients for toasted pit finishing powder. 1 clean dry date pit. A pinch of fine sea salt. Optional, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon or 1/4 teaspoon of toasted sesame for a nutty lift. If you prefer not to crunch pits, a store-bought date sugar or toasted sesame seed works as a substitute. Ingredients for the tiny face oil. 15 to 20 milliliters of a neutral carrier oil. Grapeseed, sweet almond, or fractionated coconut oil are good choices. 1 teaspoon of lightly toasted, crushed date kernel chips for infusion. Optional, 1 drop of lavender essential oil only if you know you tolerate it and have used it before. If you prefer to avoid essential oils, skip it. Ingredients for the Sleep Sachet. A few toasted kernel chips, about a tablespoon total once cooled. 1 teaspoon dried lavender or 1 teaspoon dried lemon balm. And a small muslin bag. Equipment recap. Towel, small hammer or nutcracker, oven or dry skillet, spice grinder or mortar and pestle, fine sieve or cheesecloth, sterilized 20 to 30 milliliter jar with lid, small muslin sachet, and a small pot for a water bath if you'll make the oil. Now we'll move through numbered steps. I'll pause between steps so you can keep up. Step 1. Safe pit opening. Place a dry date pit in the center of a folded towel on a stable surface. Fold another towel over it to avoid shards. Hold the wrapped pit at arm's length and tap gently with a small hammer or use a nutcracker until the shell gives. Open carefully and remove the kernel. Inspect the kernel for any tiny stone fragments and discard any damaged pieces. Step 2. Thin slice or grate the kernel. A thin slice or a coarse grate dries faster and toasts more evenly. If slicing, use a small knife and move slowly. The kernel is small and firm. If grating, keep your fingers safe and steady. Step 3. Fully dry the slices. 2 options. Oven method. Spread the slices on a baking sheet and dry at 90 to 110 degrees Celsius. That's about 200 to 225 Fahrenheit for 30 to 60 minutes until crisp and no longer cool to the touch. Check at 20-minute marks, stirring gently. Or sun-dry on a clean tray in a dry, warm spot until completely crisp, which could take several hours. The goal is 0 internal moisture. Crisp, fragile chips. Step 4. Lightly toast the dried slices. Heat a dry skillet over medium-low heat. Add the dried kernel slices and move them constantly for 2 to 4 minutes until the aroma lifts. You're not aiming for deep color, just that first fragrant note. Remove immediately to cool on a plate so they stop cooking. Step 5A. To make the finishing powder. Once cooled, grind the toasted chips to a coarse texture in a spice grinder or mortar. Sift through a fine sieve if you want a finer powder. Add a tiny pinch of sea salt and, if you like, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Taste a pinch on yogurt or porridge. Remember, this is a finishing flourish. A little goes a long way. Store in a dry labeled jar. Step 5B. To make the tiny face oil, warm 15 to 20 milliliters of your chosen carrier oil in a water bath. Place a small jar with the oil and 1 teaspoon of toasted kernel chips inside a small pot of simmering water. Keep the heat very low so the water is barely moving. Let this infuse for 20 to 30 minutes, gently moving the jar now and then. Remove the jar, cool it, then double strain through a fine sieve and cheesecloth directly into a sterilized tiny jar. Dilute further if you prefer. For very sensitive skin, mix 1 part infused oil with 2 parts plain carrier oil to lower the concentration. Label with date and contents. Step 5C. To make the Sleep Sachet. Reserve a tablespoon of toasted chips. Let them cool fully. Then gently mix with 1 teaspoon dried lavender or lemon balm. Place in a small muslin sachet and label. Keep the sachet near your bedside, but not directly under your pillow if you prefer a gentler scent. This is a dry scent sachet. No oils added, so it won't stain linens. Step 6. Common mistakes to avoid. Don't rush drying. Any retained moisture can encourage off smells. Don't toast at high heat. Brown or burnt notes mean you've lost the delicate aroma and introduced bitterness. For the oil, never infuse oil directly over high heat, and never leave it unrefrigerated for long after straining. And before using the face oil anywhere near your face, perform the patch test we'll describe in a moment. Segment 6. Storage and serving tips. Label each jar with contents and date. The toasted powder stays stable for a few weeks if completely dry and kept in a cool, dark spot. The face oil should be refrigerated and used within 4 to 6 weeks. If it smells sharp or bitter, discard it. The sleep sachet can sit in a drawer or beside a bed for several months. Refresh the scent by adding a few drops of lavender to a scrap of cotton inside the sachet. Avoid putting essential oils directly onto fabric that will touch skin.
Segment 7. Safety, Cautions, and When to Avoid. Here's what you must do. Perform a 24-hour skin patch test before applying any new oil blend to larger areas. Apply a pea-sized drop of the diluted oil to the inner forearm. Cover with a small bandage if you like, and wait 24 hours. If you notice redness, itching, swelling, or any unusual sensation, wash the area and do not use the product on your face. Stop immediately at the first sign of irritation.
More safety reminders. Never apply topical oils to broken, inflamed, or acne-inflamed skin. If you're on blood-thinning medication or have complex medical conditions, talk to a healthcare professional about adding new topical blends. And again, these instructions are for cosmetic and culinary finishing uses only, not internal dosing. If ingesting anything sounds appealing, choose commercially prepared edible products or consult a qualified source.
Segment 8. Reflection and Encouragement. Take a moment with me. Hold an imagined tiny jar in your hand. Feel its weight. Bring it to your nose. Breathe in. The toasted, woody warmth. The faint sweetness. This is small care. It's not about perfection. It's about attention. If you rescue one pit this week, you've begun a quiet habit that honors resourcefulness and sensory attention.
Before we close, a few quick troubleshooting tips. If your powder clumps, it wasn't fully dry. Return it to low heat and spread it out. If your infused oil smells off, discard it. If you experience skin sensitivity after a patch test that was initially fine, stop using the oil. Sensitivities can appear later. When in doubt, err on the side of caution. Call to action. If you tried this, please do share a photo or a short voice note. Tell us how your tiny jars turned out. You'll find the full recipes, a printable safety checklist, and photos in the show notes. If you enjoy these small, nature-wise rituals, subscribe so you don't miss the next single jar project.
Thank you for rescuing a little kitchen treasure tonight. Listen to your body. Trust the earth. Feel the difference. I'll be back with another calm, small batch ritual soon. Until then, take care of your hands and your senses.